welcome. Welcome, members. Welcome, AG and Audit Committee. My name is Colin Christians. I'm chairperson of the Standing Committee of Public Accounts. Next to me is Mr. Dustin Davids, Ms. Z. Kruter sitting there at the end. I'm going to give the members opportunity to introduce themselves, and then I'm going to give over to the AG and the Audit Committee after that. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Chair. I'm Leon van Wyk, a member of the Public Accounts Committee.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. My name is Nomin Kondlo. I'm an alternate to this committee.
Good afternoon, Peter Johnson, member of the Public Accounts Committee.
Afternoon, I'm a French Mbombo, member of the SCOPA.
Afternoon, Dave Bryant. I am standing in today for another member.
Benson, as a member of Transport Mobility Committee.
Online?
Yes, good afternoon, Chair and colleagues. It's Basil Pietra, member of this committee.
Thank you. I'm going to go over to the AG and the Audit Committee.
Good afternoon, I'm Joanne April, and I'm the Senior Manager from the AG.
Good afternoon, my name is Rosemary Jeftas. I'm a manager at the AG.
Good afternoon, members. I'm Tsepo Muslomi, Auditor General Office. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair. My name is Comfort Bunting. I chair the Audit Committee.
Good afternoon. I'm Louise Stevens, a member of the Audit Committee.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much for that. Members, we don't have the hard copies of the audit of the AG, but we have start now. Welcome to the session. I know you had quite a heavy one this morning. So my name is Philin Christians. I'm chairperson of SCOPA. Next to me is Mr. Dutton Davids, and sitting in the benches there, Ms. Lizette Kluter. I'm going to give opportunity for the members to introduce themselves, and then the member online. And then I'm going to go over to the minister and the HOD department to introduce themselves. Members, over to you.
Good afternoon, Chair. I'm Leon van Wyk, member of the Public Accounts Committee.
Afternoon, my name is Nomin Kondlo, an alternate to this committee. Good afternoon, my name is Ayada Barnes.
Good afternoon. My name is Benson Ngenzu, member of Mobility Committee.
Good afternoon. My name is Pat Lecker. We meet again. Norma French Mbombo.
Dave Bryant, and I'm standing in for another member today.
Online? Member Petrus, are you there?
Chairperson, I'm here. Basil Petrus, good afternoon, Chair again, and colleagues.
Thank you very much. Minister HOD for introductions. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, honorable members, members on the platform. My name is Isaac Mbulelo Silegu. I am the Minister of Mobility in the Western Cape. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, members. Marissa Moore, Head of Department, and I'll ask my team to introduce themselves. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Rian Wiggle, Acting CFO.
Good afternoon, Ladisa Sikiana, Financial Accounting Mobility.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. My name is Godfrey Reed. I am the Chief Director for Regulation.
Good afternoon, Chair, members. Theodore Bernard, Chief Director, Transport Operations.
Good afternoon, Chair, members. Christian Kriegler, GMT.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, members. Bianca Hendricks, Acting Director, Fleet Finance, GMT.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, members. Antoni Jansen van Ensberg, Director, Fleet Services, GMT.
Good afternoon, Chair, members. Hamza Martin, GMT.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Kenneth Boyson, Director of Strategic Support for Mobility.
Good afternoon, Fezile Bambo, Senior Manager, Transport Operations.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Sheldon Leroux, Transport Operations.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Pakamam Dita, I'm the Deputy Director in the Strategic Support Mobility. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair, members. Nadeem Hendricks, Land Transport Systems, Acting Director. Thanks.
Afternoon, Chair and members. Melvin Arendse, Land Transport Safety Management, Transport Operations.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. I'm Willie van der Merwe. I'm the Acting Chief Director, Traffic Management.
Good afternoon, everyone. Viola Tunjalo, Head of Ministry Mobility.
Thank you very much. Online?
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Blanche Cancross, Internal Audit.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Ritwin van Rensburg, Provincial Forensic Services.
Afternoon, members. Stefan Malan, Internal Audit Services.
Thank you very much. Can the people at the back just introduce themselves also?
Good afternoon, Chair. Comfort Bunting, Audit Committee Chair.
Good afternoon, Chair. Louise Stevens, Audit Committee Member.
Good afternoon, Chair. Joanne April, Senior Manager, AJSA.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. My name is Rosemary Jeffers. I'm with the Auditor General.
Thank you very much for introductions. Members, before I give the Minister and HOD the opportunity just to some opening remarks, we're going to do GMT first. We're going to do that first, but if you give introduction, you'll give introduction to department as well, and then we'll just go over to the department. Members, we're going to do governance first. That is page 74 to 94. Like I usually do it, 2 questions per member. If there's a follow-up, you'll have a follow-up, and I'll give another round after that. So I do it section by section, and over to you, Minister.
Chair, firstly, thank you very much for the opportunity and for the invite to come to Scopa. And I have to say, Chair, in my previous life, I used to sit where Member Ngenzu is currently sitting. And never in my life have I seen so many ANC members in a meeting. So I don't know whether it's deliberate or. So nonetheless, I appreciate that the colleagues are here and we are here to account. And also, Chair, and I also would just like to congratulate the GMT on another clean audit. If I'm not mistaken, is the 11th consecutive clean audit, and one appreciate that. And as much as they are very innovative, they are also good in governance. And also from the side of the department mobility, as much as the function of transport has been there, the department is only 1 year old. And I think we did agree on that one in our previous meeting with Member Ngenzu. And also would want to congratulate the department for unqualified audit with minor findings. And Chair, I'm not going to waste a lot of time because I would want to allow the members to engage with the content in front of them so that we can answer the questions of clarity that they would want to pose to us. And I would also like to welcome the audit committee for being here as well. And yeah, I'm looking forward to engaging in a very collegial way as colleagues. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, HOD.
Good afternoon. So the minister is right, GMT has had 11 clean audits, but they have now brought their 12th one, Minister, today. Yes.
Beautiful.
So it is great. Can I jump into the substance of just my overview of the GMT work?
Right, thank you.
Thank you. So on the financials for the 23-24 year, GMT has shown an increase in revenue, as well as an increase in expenditure.
I misunderstood you. We're going to do governance first, so we're not at finances. So I don't want to confuse it now.
Okay.
We usually do it very structured. So we will ask the members first on governance, and then you can go ahead.
Okay, so I will keep those
keep
and
that.
just also extend my congratulations to the whole GMT team for their hard work. This doesn't come easily, as well as for the audit committee and my support teams in internal audit, risk, as well as forensic. Just a thank you from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Page number and paragraph, if you can, then we're going to go into governance on GMT straight away. Is there members with questions? Member Nkondlo, you first.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon to the Minister and his team. I'm not going to go into your remarks, Minister. I'm sure those are for the GNU, so I would leave it there. We're not here in the province. On page 78, I just want clarity on what you have submitted there as unsustainable public transport. You speak about lack of legislative clarity. Can you explain more? What do you mean about that? And also the risk of dependency on suppliers. I think those are my first two for now, Chair. I've got one question, but I'll ask in the second round.
Thank you. I'll do this from my two in quickly. Page 78 here. The bullet points, the last one, not being effective and efficient. If you can just elaborate on that, and of course, then page 80 on the new cases, the fraud cases on page 80. If you can elaborate on that, member. Let me just get Member Van Wyk first, and then Member Peters, Member Van Wyk.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I think also page 78, there's the reference on strategic risks in terms of inefficient freight movement. And, perhaps if you can just elaborate on that. I know it's quite a big project that one is trying to undertake there in how one can improve that type of freight movement, because I think from an economic point of view, it's obviously very important that we do see what we can do both on the rail and on the port side, and particularly if we think of the impact on our roads by having the road transport effectively eating up our roads. So it becomes very important from that point of view, and I think also then from the export market in terms of the agricultural produce that we produce that needs to get to the port and to efficiently operate there.
Thank you very much, Member Van Wyk. Member Petrus, you have a question?
Yes, Chairperson. On the same question, Chairperson, there was a workshop that identified all that risks under that bullet points. Can we go through all that risks, Chairperson?
Thank you. Yeah, that's page 78. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Is that all, members? Now, for now, over to you, AGD. You can delegate. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The department, as we indicated this morning, there was work already done in the Western Cape Province in key areas of the department, and we inherited a risk register that initially was just signed by the incoming acting HOD. I think from the audit committee, that's where it's initiated. The question was, do we have actions to address all of these risks? And when we started looking at the actions for that risk register, we realized we've got to go back and do what I call a zero-based risk register. So we started from scratch on our risk register. And the approach we took is to say that we have certain goals as a department, certain strategic objectives, and we are going to craft the risk register around what are the risks relating to those strategic objectives. So that's just the background for this work. So us wanting to work towards integrated public transport, unsustainable transport services was our risk. And just to give some detail to the member, the current legislative space in both the transport and the public transport space has got brand new legislation. So both the National Road Traffic Act as well as the National Land Transport Act and the regulations around those acts have been amended in the last year. But neither of those pieces of legislation has been enacted, so they haven't been promulgated for us to start them. And a similar position is the ARTO legislation, which was approved, or the Constitutional Court gave the go-ahead for the implementation of ARTO, but the regulations have not been signed off and the act has not been promulgated to start. So we find ourselves knowing where we need to be going, but not knowing when we've got to start going there, and that impacts on all the work of the department. So that is that risk. And then on the freight side, the legal mandate for the department is around transport planning and strategy, and also regulation of freight services in terms of the NLTA. Municipalities have got freight planning functions, and then the big freight movement happens on the road and very few on rail and air, obviously. So the department is finding ways in which it can support existing freight through things like the freight data banks, so that we have information available on who is moving what, where we can get that information. We also are implementing the freight strategy that was adopted by Province in 2019 in terms of supporting information, supporting drivers, supporting planning. And we are currently looking at how to seriously look at a kind of a road to rail strategy through a rail revitalization process. So the immediate work is to look at the framework so that we can understand what of the current feeder lines and maybe branch lines in the province can be revitalized and used for maybe both freight and passenger rail. So that risk obviously relates to congestion and inefficiencies in the ports. And then on the public transport side, the illegal operators obviously pose a risk to existing operators in terms of economic risk. It poses a safety risk for the commuters, and it poses a violence risk where illegal operators move into spaces where existing legal operators operate. And so we see that as a key risk in us supporting the minibus taxi and other operators. The revenue risk, sorry, that is very cryptic. The department collects the motor vehicle license fees, which is the largest provincial revenue source for the Western Cape government. And we currently do that based on a circular, and we want to move towards a MOA with municipalities just to address risks of non-payment, but also to make sure that what we are paying is sufficient and can be justified. Then the minister has, as his priorities, indicated that road safety is a key priority. So for us, obviously, fatalities and crashes is a major risk. It is a risk in terms of infrastructure. It's a risk in terms of other road users, and obviously it puts people's lives and livelihoods at risk. So that we deal with that. Dependency on suppliers is largely about where we do big systems in mobility, and what specifically on IT systems can happen is you become dependent on that supplier, and it's really hard to transition out to a new supplier. And so we want to put mechanisms in place to help with those transitions. And then internal control failure was just the risk that we don't manage our financial assets properly, and that we don't manage our assets properly, and that our supply chain systems are in place. And then largely is the last one is a risk around how we are capacitated to deliver on our different mandates, and what we do to address risks of reduction in budgets for COE and pressures on capacity to do all these things. Chair, so those are all the risks on page 78, and then there was just a question on the cases of the forensic cases. So we opened the year with one case at hand. It spoke to a couple of issues, but I know one of them has been taken up with SAPS. But not finalized. And then there were two new cases introduced into the department, and all three of those cases are still under investigation.
Members, I know Member Lekker's next, and Member Nkontlo after that. Minister, you can chip in. I mean, you work hand in hand with them, so when you need to chip in, you can chip in. Thank you. Member Lekker first.
No, thank you, Chair. Mine, Chair, is around the what one may call, Chair, a relationship between the transition of the two departments. the mobility, and the other one of infrastructure. When it comes to what one may actually call a strategic arrangement in terms of performance management, how and when were the two departments parted? Were there any arrangement made in terms of the performance indicators that the two departments had to report to? Were there such arrangement? And if there were, how were that kind of arrangement entered into to a point where you get to reporting on auditing purposes? Thank you, Chair.
Chair, firstly, help me understand. Are we dealing with section C of both the department and GMT? Okay. Okay. I'm struggling in my mind, Chair.
Oh, look, it's going to be difficult because all of these concerns is raised in the department as well. So it's the same thing. So I think we can, if we can deal with the department, then we don't have to do the department. We can do that as well. I'm just thinking, because if you look at the risks of GMT, it's the risk of the department. There's some additional questions that I have when it comes to the department, but I think let's put them together, because remember, Lekka has now already trained into those waters of the department. So let's go, member Nkontla. Let's go do the department and GMT together. Then we deal with that simultaneously. Thank you.
Okay, Chair. And when I open, you are very correct, because if you check page 71 of the department and what is in the GMT, it's like a copy and paste. I think there's only one where there's a difference. I do not know why. Perhaps you can explain that, because I was struggling to understand, for as an example, what does inefficient freight movement had to do with GMT? That's a strategy for the department, not government motor transport. What role does GMT play in the freight strategy? So that's why I was a bit confused when the HOD is answering a question on because I don't even understand why this risk is in the GMT. Because GMT has got, unless you've got a different GMT, you've expanded the mandate of the GMT. Since you've got a new minister, you decided, and you left us behind as Parliament, because I was not aware. I never saw any ATC that says GMT has actually been expanded to deal with the broader transport mandate. So I think that's my issue HOD, because I would understand from the department side. It makes perfect sense in the answer. So I was a bit confused. But having said that, and once again, on the lack of legislative clarity and what the HOD is answering, my little understanding of policy processes is that if things, as you say, some are awaiting promulgation or others have been promulgated, you are awaiting regulations, surely at this point you are supposed to operate on what is existing, isn't it? So that is why I would want to understand what exactly, in the context of the GMT, what exactly are these issues that are a challenge from a policy clarity point of view? And what have you done? Because the understanding is that if there are any legislative matters, obviously your responsibility as the department is to bring those things either to the standing committee here, if there are matters of province, or those are matters, obviously, that will be taken nationally through the NCOPO processes. Have you done that if these are strategic risks, as you say? And I'm relating that to the issue of GMT. I've not gotten into it. This is just my follow-up, Chair, on the responses given. Thank you very much.
Just my follow-up is your cases, fraud cases, is the same in the department? GMT is the same cases because it's the same figures. Is it the same? I think it is the same. And then secondly, just a follow-up on that also now with your the last bullet point here, not being effective and efficient. No, that one, the internal control failure. Is there a problem with asset management? Is that a major concern there? If you can just elaborate more on that. Thank you, HOD.
So the trading entity the accounting officer for the department is the accounting officer for the trading entity. There is provision in the PFMA that you can have a separate accounting officer, but in our case, the accounting officer, which is myself, is also the accounting officer. So from a governance perspective, it is managed together. All the risks, all the forensic issues, all of the governance matters fall under my office, and we don't have separate co-meetings, and we have found that that is very positive for the work of GMT. When we look at the risks, so the risks are as I said, the risk arise out of the strategy of the department, and the strategy of the department is an efficiency strategy. There are GMTs in the country who also does freight fleet, truck fleets, not just cars for personnel, but they would do the fleet management to move books for libraries or to move medical supplies to hospitals. So they would actually do freight fleet management as well. GMT is looking at that. They're not ready for it yet, but you can see what that does is when the department sets its goals, we are going, yeah, these are the concerns of freight, then GMT can start aligning its thinking and its own plans, its own strategic plan to support the goals of the minister. So that is why this is a copy and paste. It is the same governance structure. We all go into the same meetings. We don't have separate meetings for risks and governance. The transition question, I think, is really important. And maybe I just start with one of the transition issues that is a risk, and that is the asset transfer. So you've asked what are the specific issues for the department, so not for GMT, but for although GMT has got some building issues that they're sorting out, the transfer of the assets, the auditor or the accounting standards gives us 2 years, and so we have until March this year coming year to finish all the asset transfers. So it is a risk. We have identified it as a concern, and it is one of the transition issues that has arisen. In terms of other transition issues, the internal audit picked that we had a management arrangement. So from the 1st of April, the new department was created, and it brought transport operations, traffic management, transport regulation, and GMT as is came out of Department of Transport and Public Works. But the administration function was left in the DOI under what was called a management arrangement for 6 months until October. So when internal audit looked at, did we have all the controls of how that thing was going to be managed? We didn't have a standard operating procedure to manage the management arrangement. It was basically managed through the delegations of the Department of Infrastructure. Obviously, by the time that was picked up, the thing had already been addressed. And then there are specific issues that was picked up also by internal audit. The one good example is the overload control infrastructure is DOI infrastructure, and the overload control system is DOI system. But we are currently reporting on the performance of overload control, what do we call it? Overload, vehicles stopped, vehicles weighed, to be weighed, yeah. And to be frank with the committee, we initially thought that this is a systems. We have an internal control report that speaks about the systems, and we've been focusing on that. And we even got an audit query on the systems, and we started focusing on that. But I am speaking to the HRD of infrastructure to say, should this not be performance not have stayed with infrastructure? Should the actual performance indicator not have stayed there, because they weigh the vehicles, we do the enforcement. So if you overload it. So there are things that are not clean yet, that I think there is definitely still some discussion needed. And what we've done is we've set up an agreement that we meet every 2 months between the two HRDs to just clear that space constantly, so that we are able to address these matters. Thank you, Chair.
I'm going to ask this just for my understanding. I just want to, and I fully understand that there's one accounting officer. But according to my knowledge, there's certain things that are unique to GMT and certain things that are unique to the department. I had to look, I mean, am I reading the same document or two? You understand what I'm saying? So I don't understand, why can you not place the risks for the department separately to GMT? If you can, I know you say one meeting, but there's certain things that you can say is distinct. There's certain things that you can do that. So just that question, maybe, if you can elaborate on that. That's a follow-up on my question on that. And then I'm just going to ask Member van Wyk, and then Member Kontloff, and then Member Lekker. Member van Wyk?
Yes, I think look, you know, I think it's quite clear that there can be this confusion between the two. I understand what we are doing. The point that I just wanted to bring is a technical point on page 81 of mobility, is just under the scope of resolutions of 8.1, just for the purposes of this meeting. It would appear that the figures that are included in there, because we talk about 9,408 billion rand. In other words, we haven't got decimal points, were not included, incorporated in this annual report. So that goes through that whole paragraph on 8.1. And, you know, unfortunately, that is a document that's now a public document. So there's probably an errata that would then need to just go out to clarify that for any reader who may come and ask some difficult questions as to where all the gazillions or the billions are.
Chair, without, I think, harping on the issue of reporting between GMT and the department, I think we must give comfort to the HOD that this department has existed before. It may be now being said it's a, what do you call it, mobility, but it was there as part of public works and transport. And in the reporting of risks or anything of the department, those things will be true and separate. So I don't think that should be said because the governance structure, because indeed the governance structure is like that. GMT is in transport, but what we are asking here is that we need to understand, in contrast, what are risk of GMT versus the risk of the department. I think that's all that we are asking, and would like to see, you know, going into the future. Chair, I want to understand, perhaps I didn't hear the explanation about the last one, the risk about the department not fit for purpose, appropriate capacity, performance management, failure, and organizational culture. I think this is loaded. I just want to understand what this particular risk mean for the department, and what is it, Minister, that you are doing about this? And my second one, I think it links to what Member Lekker had asked. Earlier on, we said with the internal audit and with SCOPA, their finding says the annual performance report includes information on reported, no, not this one. I think I'm reading a wrong one. I think they reported a finding. I'm trying to find the page now so that I read appropriately. Okay, the material finding on compliance, that the annual performance plan did not include the expected outcomes, and you are explaining the challenges of the transition. I'm interested to know, HOD and the Minister, that given what the HOD has just raised now, with this admin function that apparently was shared between the old outfit of Public Works and Transport. And then at a certain point, it was separated. You know, because the question I'm sitting with here is that when this pronouncement, because this is what we debated earlier on, the Premier made the pronouncement around 2019, isn't it? About the split of these two departments. And for me, the question is, was there, even before, discussions about the entire process of separating these departments? Because it's like, it's a learning by doing, as I'm listening, because now we're seeing problems of governance down the line, you know, because the question is the extent to which there was work happening within Public Works to determine how this transition is going to take place, where infrastructure is going to go this side with its programs and the other one is going to go on the other side. So I'm interested whether there is that kind of work that was happening within this, because these were two departments, and yes, they have been split, because now you're saying you are going to have meetings still with the other department, because according to the AG and also the internal audit, we did not find the similar finding, as an example, in the Department of Infrastructure around their own program administration. But it seems on this side of the fence, which is on mobility, there were these problems. So I'm trying to understand, where did this problem came from? Is it a situation that there wasn't, because there's a refresh project, we are told, that was actually driving this work. And it seems this refresh project, when you look at your report versus the infrastructure on the other side, here your risks about the transition are more versus what one sees in infrastructure. So my question is, was there work being done within this particular department that included yourselves as the people that were going to go into mobility to try and define your own governance issues? Because according to what you are seeing here, it seems there were problems if your admin, as an example, had actually these material findings.
Member Lekker, I'm going to give you now. I just want to add on that now quickly on Member Nkontlo. Just to say, let me just elaborate. It says internal control deficiencies, and it says management did not comply with the requirement of Treasury Regulation 5.2.3, thus resulting in material non-compliance being reported there on. That's program 1, and that is what Member Nkontlo, I just wanted to add that. Member Lekker?
No, thank you, Chair. As and when the HOD responds to this, Chair, perhaps the HOD must touch on whether there were indicators that talks to this, because it would appear that there's a misalignment. So perhaps if you also touch into that one, as and when you respond. Thank you.
Thank you very much, members. HOD?
Okay, so I unfortunately cannot answer for the processes before the creation of the department because I wasn't there. We can ask for some of that work that I think was dealt with through the DG's office. I'm not privy to that. But maybe to just get to the crux of the matter, which I understand is the indicator for the administration program that wasn't in our IPP in 23-24. So when the department was created on the 1st of April, but the IPP is tabled in Parliament in February. March, dankie Kenneth. So the work to put out all the plans for the year and how we will measure the plans was in place obviously before the 1st of April. When we got the feedback from the auditor, so that reference, that 5.2, ek het nou nie die nommer in my kop nie. Thank you. 5.2.3 is a Treasury regulation provision that says when you do a strategic plan and annual performance plan, you must have indicators for all your programs, stroke sub-programs. That's how it reads. So the feedback from the Auditor General was, we don't comply with that. There's a whole program administration that had no indicators, and then there were some sub-programs that also didn't have indicators. We had a whole discussion. Those are very small programs, they're not really significant, and the program Stoke sub-program wasn't very clear, is that the or an and? So they let go of that matter, but they were saying it's very clear that for your program, you must have an indicator. When we had a discussion with them to say, but that function, the administration function, had not come to the department, was not under the HOD mobility's control. It stayed with infrastructure. The auditor said to us, yes, they understand that, but then we needed to, in the adjustment budget, put that indicator. When we moved the people on the 1st of October, we should have put the indicator into, say, whatever the indicator, we should have put it in. And it wasn't done. That is the failure. It wasn't done. So it wasn't done when we were created. And when we took all the function, all the people into the department with the money, we should have, in the adjustment budget, came to say, yeah, is another APP with the indicator for administration. And we failed to do that. So it is not easy to show a finger, because you could have fixed the problem before it got a problem, and you also had another time to fix the problem, and we didn't fix it at either point. So that is the finding that the auditors have raised. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. That didn't answer the risk of member Contra, the second fit for purpose. Yeah, that one. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so and maybe this is because it's also important. So, and we spoke about this morning, is that when the department was created, it was a lift and shift. So the people who used to work in transport operations moved to mobility. So there was no, so what you had is you had programs in a huge big department that was structured in a certain way and capacitated in a certain way. And all those people were just pulled out and put into a smaller department. But there was no process to ask, if we put you together like this, is it fit for purpose? Will you have the right capacity to do the admin, to do transport operations, to do regulations, to do traffic, to support GMT's work? It was just to say, yes, everything that's got to do with mobility, we are going to move you. So from the beginning, the understanding was we will do refresh phase 1, lift and shift, and then we will do refresh phase 2. And then as we entered the springtime, the DPSA put out a circular to say all posts are now frozen, and there must be a big process to get the Premier to approve any additional posts. So refresh phase 2 has now been sitting on the desk of, I don't know. I don't think it's a desk. I think it's a money tree, so under the money tree somewhere, because we've not have the resources to now start thinking we should be looking a bit different. We did, in the first round of the budget last year, we did ask for 78 critical posts to be added and some vacancies to be filled. So we've been doing work in that regard, but it remains a risk that there are critical areas of skills that we just don't have. I mean, I can refer back to the risk. Freight is one of them. As the member indicated, freight is a big economic issue. It's a big issue for job creation in the province. And we have not a single senior manager that is dedicated to freight. So that is what that risk is about. It's about capacity and how to align ourselves to our mandate. Thank you, Chair.
Member Peters, but I'm worried with those answers. I don't know. I'm extremely worried. You know, lift and shift, and then you don't have the capacity in the post. Oh, it's I don't know. Member Petrus, maybe the members want to follow up on that. We'll do that now. But Member Petrus, I don't want to neglect you.
Yes, Chairperson, thank you again. Chairperson, this was a political decision to establish this one department. And we can't put all the blame now on the officials here or the department. it's clear that their decision have a big impact on the transport department. I think we must change our focus here and give the necessary assistance with resources and capacity to this department from now on.
Thank you. Minister, I'll give you an opportunity. Just to say, I think we're going to sit whole night with this. And I think the best way to do is the department will have to come brief us separately. We're going to ask for documentation and then brief us separately. How did they manage these risks? Because, you know, clearly we as a committee are not happy with the answers, but I think we're going to ask you to come and brief us. But Minister, maybe there was called that we mustn't blame all the officials, so maybe you can answer that one.
No, I think, Chair, thank you very much to Member Pietrus. You know that as much as the members are saying that the function has been there for years and the department is only 1 year, of course, when everybody knows when there is change, there are people that are pro change, there are people that are against change. It's human nature, and unfortunately, a decision is taken, and we are continuing with the implementation of the Department of Mobility. Of course, there will be some issue that we need to address, and I think that's what the risks are actually telling us. There are issues of concern that have been picked up and that you need to address. And then if you follow and you read, you know, that within the first quarter of 24-25, that's when we are going to unpack some of the risk and what is it that we are putting in place to address some of these risks. You know, and there's a question that what is it that I'm doing? You know, even though I've been in the position for less than 4 months, I have picked it up because it's human nature. I understand how human beings, you know, react to change. And in the last 2 weeks, I have engaged with the DG in saying that we need to deal with this elephant in the room because there are people that are still operating as transport, whereas we are in mobility. And we've been dealt with this as a department, and then we need to move forward. And unfortunately, if we need to talk about some issues that are of concern, and then that's what we are going to engage with going forward. And I've asked the officials that when that process unfolds, that the officials are going to be honest in their deliberation, in their concerns, so that we can move forward. Because I don't want to find ourselves in the same situation next year at this time that we are still talking about issues of personnel, of issues of, you know, there is no cooperation. As a result, I have made, you know, it's one of my priorities that I've identified, making sure that I make sure that there is a team that can work with each other, a team that can trust each other, so that we can achieve all the things that we want to achieve. If we are not going to correct that, those are the basic things that we need to correct. Make sure that everybody sees the same and everybody believes in the same vision within mobility. And I think that's what I'm doing from the side of being a minister of mobility, identifying there are concerns, but I'm not going to just sweep it under the carpet. I'm going to be honest, I'm going to be blunt, and we're going to deal with it. And then we're going to go forward as a team mobility. Thank you very much.
I'm trying to, Member Benson Gehensu.
Yes.
That's right. Okay, Member Benson and then Member Kondlo after that.
Thanks, Chair. And thanks very much, MEC. Is the MEC informing this committee that there is change resistance or resistance to change in the department? And thus, what could be described a potential governance crisis? Thanks.
Kondlo?
Chair, I wanted to support your suggestion, I think, on this matter, so that at least also it gives us enough time to engage with this department better, especially on managing this particular risk, because this department is very important also in the, what do you call it, the G4J strategy of the province. So it would be important for us, you know, not to be negligent about the issues that are being raised as strategic risks. But I think one wants to make this comment, Chair, acknowledging what Minister is saying, but also trying to balance that we're talking about protection institutions here. so that we do not belabor the points about how individuals, because individuals must always, from a governance point of view, you want institutions that are strong enough and really resilient, through change. But also it's about how the change comes about, because I think that is why my question, and I understand HOD that it may not have been there, but the institution has been there. So for me, we're going to have a challenge. If we can't talk about the institution, we must talk about the individual, because I can tell you, I've got some members of this department that I know that have been there. So when I'm asking a question, I'm not asking you per se as a person. I'm expecting institutional memory to be able to assist you to respond to our issues, which is the importance of when such change gets to be managed, or even when a change is being raised, Chair. I think this is one from a governance point of view and financial accounting that we would need to note as SCOPA, that the important thing is that when this announcement for us, and I think we debated and deliberated about it in the House, and we asked questions about the management of the transition, because we were quite aware of these potential hurdles that could actually emanate, that now are coming, at the tail end. So for me, I think I fully support, so that we can actually move on this issue, Chair. Whilst I've got my last question that I've asked, that I said I'm going to ask, which is a GMT question on page 93 of the book of GMT. In their section 13 on BBBE compliance, I'm not sure I'm understanding what is the meaning of not applicable. There in the question, developing and implementing a preferential procurement policy. Are you implementing the triple PFA and BBBE? And if so, how?
You remember, Brian, your hand up?
Thanks very much, Chair. Chair, mine is more sort of a question of just in terms of procedure. And I understand we're on this topic at the moment and it's sort of being resolved now. But I just want to work out, because I know we took a couple of sections together, and I'm just trying to establish where we are currently in terms of working through the reports.
We're still on governance, but we're doing governance department and GMT. So we won't go back to governance when we get to the department. HOD, over to you.
Just also remember that maybe I didn't answer that other question about the legislation, the question clearly. I hear what the member is saying is that what you do is you do what the existing legislation provides until such time as the change. Just to give an example, in the National Land Transport Amendment Act, the appointment of the PRE members is only on a contract basis. So I have a full-time staff complement that's currently running my PRE system, who are all now feeling insecure because they must now reapply for their own jobs. So it is true that for now it's what it is. But the moment things like that happen, you've got to start thinking about what is the organization design implications of this? Can you accommodate? So it creates a risk of how do you manage the transition from the one into the other. On the question on page 93, the department doesn't have its own policy on preferential procurement. It follows the guidance of the legislation. So it doesn't try and say we will do our own version of the triple PFMA. It will say it only follows the law as it stands. Thank you.
Minister, I think that question is to you by Member Benson McCunso.
Member Benson, Honorable Nensu. No, the question that you're asking, I wouldn't say that there is resistance, but it's only human nature that if you've been part of a house for 20 years and then you have to move and go to another house, of course, there will be some issues. And that's why we are saying if we are people-centric, and then you would want to deal with those issues that people are confronted with while they are in the new house. Hence, I'm engaging in that process of making sure if there are concerns that I am there as the executive authority to take them through that, because I would not want to lose anyone within that particular house. Thank you very much.
you, members. We're going to move to PFMA compliance report. That is page 129 to 136. I've got a question I want to throw out quickly, and then I'm going to go Member van Wyk. Just very interesting on page 134. Supply chain management, procurement by other means, and 123 line number 4, vehicle procurement of a post and another just tell us this vehicle procurement when it comes to the post. Yes, some I don't know. There's some extravagant vehicles here. Maybe you can explain on that. And then I just wanted to also just ask on page 133 the theft. It's explained here, but if you can just maybe, because when I read it, I was very concerned about the fuel cards pertaining to that. Member van Wyk and then Member Nkontlo.
Yes, Chair, I think you spotted what I'd spotted was obviously the Porsche Cayennes and the Porsche Macan and whatever, and I imagine that is probably for this new department that they were acquiring these vehicles. I'm saying jokingly, because there's obviously another reason. And then just so that was under GMV, the GMT. And then under mobility, under the supply chain management on page 138 is.
No, we're not going to mobility. We just did governance the same. Okay. So we're going to stay now at GMT, not GMV. So GMT, we're going to stay there. Okay. And then we're going to move over. So we're going to finish this first, and then we're going to move over. Okay. Thank you very much, Member Nkontlo.
Okay, that was the confusion.
Okay, over to GMV. Yeah, but Member Nkontlo.
I'm sure Member van Wyk wants to say GNU. We are right behind you as your partners in GNU. We are right behind you. On page 134 to 135, Chair, I think my question is just to explain to us this, I'm assuming this is limited bid, and our education from all the other departments we have dealt with in understanding limited bid is that you would be buying something from one supplier, that ordinarily, whatever product you want to buy, there's no other one who can provide. But indeed, when I look at what is here, I'm failing to understand that logic. Perhaps you can explain to us what it meant. And I just want to understand whether these suppliers, what is their BBBE scorecard?
Thank you. That's it. Thank you, HOD.
I'm going to ask Mr. Beagle to just respond to the questions on page 134. And also, Chair, sorry, Rian, is we did table an erratum this morning in the portfolio committee. And one of the erratums actually speaks to this table, because if you add up all this big money, it luckily doesn't add up to 145 million. 145 million, it only adds up to 40 million. So there is a mistake on the table. But we will, I don't know if we must table the erratum. Yeah, shall we, can I maybe just do that?
They got it.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll ask Rian to answer the question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson, through you. So there were two questions on numbered pages 134 and 35. It pertains to the Porsches and basically that entire procurement process. One of the clients of GMT is the National Office of Chief Justice. So basically the judges are entitled to that we allocate a vehicle to them for the value of 2,020,000. That's the current value that's placed. And basically the Office of Chief Justice is one of those clients. Generally, GMT procures its vehicles through a national contract, the RT57. These vehicles that you see over here are not available on the national contract, so the RT57, but yet we have to fulfill that need and that service to the Office of Chief Justice. So alternative that we follow is to follow a limited bidding process through the Provincial Treasury Instruction Section 554, specifically subsection 4, which deals with a certain product that can be motivated, that's available in the market, and we obviously obtain quotes through, for example, Porsche. We obtain 3 quotes through the various dealerships, and we evaluate those and check that it's basically CSD compliant, the tax affairs are in order, and we opt for the cheapest vehicle. So that's why the vehicles that you would see over here, Porsche, Jaguar, Land Rover, are not available on the RT57. If the vehicles were available and we received the request, then we would opt for that mechanism of procurement. When we move to page number 133, there was a question on the fuel and the theft. So 236,000 in the current year, and last year it was just over 4.5 million. So this is one of the fraud cases. There was a previous question on the fraud cases. This was the open case that was transferred from last year to this year, and it's still under investigation. So what happened in this case is that the GMT fuel cards were cloned, and basically it resulted in estimated theft. So we cannot quantify it at this stage, but that's the best information that we've got available to basically put a number to it. So we cannot include it according to its nature in any other SCOA item because it's not fuel, because it's theft, because there was no monetary benefit to GMT, and that's why we're actually including it as material losses. Thank you.
Members, that is a risk, but there's no ways you can overcome that. People clone cards. I'm just asking, how do you, if somebody is dishonest and they want to clone cards, you can't get away with that. Can you just answer that?
Chairperson, we've updated our internal control processes within GMT and the system specifically. So that's why when we get to Section E, there was significant purchasing the intangible assets, which is the systems and the development of that. So we've got definite and indefinite indicators. So basically, for example, a definite indicator would be putting petrol in a diesel vehicle. That's a definite indicator, and basically it blocks it from at the point of sale at the forecourt or the garage. So there are 13 indicators that we've updated in our system, and that's why you see it's been a significant decrease from 4.5 million to 236. And that's how we've updated our systems. And we're also working in collaboration with our financial institution, the bank, that's also rendering and partnering with us to obviously uphold these internal control processes.
Members, Member Control?
My question on the BBB is scorecard of this, but also I just want to know, are you saying all of these were cars that you had to purchase for judges? Is that what you're saying? All of them?
All of them, yeah. All of them, yeah, had to be purchased with judges.
So just for the
HD?
people online, yes, all of these vehicles are bought for the Office of the Chief Justice for judges. And the policy of the department on supply chain is that I sign off on all of these procurements, and the GMT provides the different dealerships, and they are minute Porsche costing Durban versus Cape Town. So, but we will always choose the cheapest one, but it is not worth going out on a tender.
Thank you very much, members. Is that covered? Let's go to the financials. Members, questions on the financials part F. That is from page 137 to 265. Members, questions? Can I, while we waiting for questions, can I just throw in my one first? Financial information. I just can get my page. Maybe just on page 149, operating expenditure, there's no, it's not that one. It's 149. Yeah, it's 149. I'm just checking here. Accidents and impairment losses. I think that's note 26, if I got it right here. And then if you can go to page 163, sundry creditors or liabilities due to third-party claim. If you can just elaborate on that. And then payments, that's no, page 163, 3, note 3, and payments received in advance. If you can just elaborate on that one, the two last paragraphs on that one. Member Nkondlo, you next.
The beauty of a new department is that, Minister, you've got no irregular expenditure, no, you see. So on the other hand, I think this is a benefit. Next year around this time, you may have a different ball game. On page 153, there isn't much, because also even in terms of the figures of the budget, you've got nothing to look against. So I'm sure the department can sail easy on this one. I just wanted to understand, I think on page 153, I see there's an underspending on COE due to delayed recruitment. Can you indicate how many were these posts and their levels and why? What also caused the delay, including the issue of the appointment of the service provider? And is it something, are these the posts that are gonna then in this current financial year that will be filled?
This is not a question, it's just a correction. If you go to page 167, it's just a correction. It is the third line, the Public Works and the Department of Human Settlements ceased to exist. It ceased to exist. Can you see there? So we took the department, but it ceased, stopped to exist. So if I don't know if somebody else picked it up, so you must give me some marks for that. Okay, HOD, over to you for the answers.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I will answer the COE question. Rian, if you will answer the 3 points that was raised on the finances. Largely the under expenditure on compensation for employees was because of the DPSI circular that requires Premier's approval before we can fill posts. So that has caused a couple of months delay in that financial year for us to get all the posts motivated and get the submission into the system. We initially had funding, as I said, through the adjustment budget, but later in that year, we struggled to put things together. What we now do is we separate GMT and the department, otherwise we hold them back. And GMT has been very quick on the uptake to then fill the post. So it was basically the new circular from DPSI that just delayed us to start the recruitment process. Jan?
Thank you, Chairperson. I'll start off with a question posed on page 163 on payments received in advance. Clients with overpaid accounts, 1.772 million. So GMT, one of GMT's revenue streams is kilometers that we charge for client institutions. And we rely on client institutions to capture ODOs by the reporting date. And sometimes it happens due to many reasons that those ODOs are incorrectly captured. Extra zeros added or it's just incorrectly captured. And during the subsequent processes, we identify that the ODOs that were captured were too high. So what happened in this case, the majority is for, well, it's for 2 departments, one provincial department, Western Cape Education Department, 890,000, and then a national department, Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries, 881,000. So basically that amount mainly consists of those 2. And we subsequently corrected that. So this was determined from the year end, 31st of March, up to the reporting to when the financials were submitted, the end of May. During that process, it was corrected. But because GMT is on accrual accounting, it needed to correctly reflect by the end of March, and that's why we're actually showing it here under payables. Then there was a question on accidents and impairment losses, note number 26, numbered page 201. Chairperson, if I understand your question correctly, what does that entail? Is that what you're asking? Okay, so the majority here is for vehicles, 9.3 million. And basically, this is an accounting entry that we pass at the year end. So basically, what we do is we identify the vehicles that's been damaged, obsolete, mechanical failure, etc. So what we do is we compare the carrying value on the chart of accounts, compare it to a market value, which is a fair value, and in our terms, we call it the residual value. So what we would expect if we had to dispose that vehicle at the end of March. So when the carrying value exceeds the residual value, then it prompts us to pass an accounting entry for accidents and impairment losses. When the vehicle is disposed, then it goes to a different line item in under losses. But so this is just the accounting entry. There was also 466,000 for impairment losses. This is done according to the accounting standard GRAP 104, which deals with financial instruments. And this was for a national client institution which had an overdue account. And basically, we charged interest on that account. And they didn't pay that account. But it was a bit of a difficult situation. We don't want to overstate our receivable if we left this entry out, the 466. So we had to pass this entry. And that's the majority of it. There's also additional 42,000, but that deals with bad debts already written off and the provision for bad debts, but that's more for fleet risk debtors, which is individuals actually damaging our vehicles, and we're instituting claims against the individuals. Thanks. Thank you, Chairperson.
A new set of questions. Member Cordwell.
Page 176, Chair. On the contingent liabilities, I think the ones that emanate from the previous Transport and Public Works, can you give us more detail on what's the situation of this matter? Has it been concluded? Because I see it's an old matter from the previous department, the 45.8 million liability. And is it money that you have in your budget? Oh, and GMT, okay.
GMT, yeah.
Apologies.
Okay, we're still in GMT.
Okay,
can I just ask
for the department?
Can I just ask the question? 170 stolen. 170. If you look at stolen, and it gives you the vehicles referred to note 7.3.6. The vehicles listed there being stolen, and extras that's in 177. So 170 refers to 7.3.6. And then 7.3.6 give you the vehicles, and then also extras fitted to vehicles. We can just get some explanation on that. And then if you go to page 198 on page 22, I know this morning there was a lot of talk on consultants, but here's consultant on change management, project management, research and advisory services. If you can just give us some indications why you had to go and get consultants for all of those things. Members, any questions on GMT? Don't jump to the department now. Member Lecker.
No, thank you, Chair. My question is on page 199 under stolen vehicles. I want to check there in terms of a process that was undertaken. Is there any update on the matter and what has been the consequences thereof? Thank you.
It should be over to you, and then we'll go for the next round after that.
I'm going to ask Rian to speak to the accounting for the stolen vehicles, and then I'm not sure, Khamsa, are you going to answer the consultant's question, you or Antoni? Are you comfortable? Thank you.
Chairperson, thank you. On numbered page 170, which links to the notes included under 177, you asked about the stolen vehicles. So that's 11 stolen vehicles, and I think it links to a later question now. None of them have been recovered. The extras fit into vehicles, those are typically what we refer to as child assets. So you've got a vehicle and then you've got a tow bar, a canopy, or rubberizing, etc. So those are the extras fitted to the vehicle to make it fit for purpose for the use of the vehicle. So we've got the body, which is the parent asset, and then basically we fit the extras, but those are uniquely identified according to the accounting standard because it's got a different nature to it. So that's why when we talk about vehicles, extras, conversions, all of them are in different line items according to the accounting framework. Thank you.
Is a consequence management with the stolen vehicles? That is what like added to my question. What happens if vehicles are stolen? Because vehicles are stolen, and then what is the procedure? You report it to the police. Is there an investigation? What happens after that?
We will ask Antoni to answer that question. He deals with the fleet management side. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Based on the procedures for accidents and losses, when a vehicle is stolen or hijacked, the client department will report it to GMT as well as to the police. So there's a case docket open for the hijack or stolen vehicle. In terms of the internal GMT procedures, as we are self-insured, we do investigate these matters in conjunction with the police. We have picked up that there was an increase in the number of hijackings and thefts, and we've taken additional steps by having recovery units fitted to the vehicle to assist with the recoveries that realize some significant vehicle recoveries, as well as we've spoken to the Special Investigation Unit at SAPS to assist us with investigations into these cases. So it is currently ongoing, but we have applied mechanisms to combat it.
Thank you very much, HOD.
Chair, and then the other question that you raised was with regard, I think you were on page 198, is that correct? On the operating expenditure page? Yeah. So the GMT's philosophy is to stay a lean and mean organization. They don't want to have too high operating costs. So I think there's like 134 people working there. So you will see the key expenditure relates to operations. I think that is the maintenance contract, Antoni. There is also the fleet, I think they call it Fleet Man. So that is a system they use for the vehicle trading. The other large cost there is a consulting base for research and advisory services. You heard that we spoke this morning about the electric vehicle strategy. GMT has partnered with universities to support the research both for that as well as the hydrogen vehicle strategy. And they do use support. Rian spoke earlier about how they are using technology to support the to stop fuel fraud. GMT, you will see in the annual report, has gone through a whole cycle of digitizing their processes and systems. So they are able to do a verification of a vehicle, like there's a vehicle's in an accident and you want to know what the damage is and what you do next, that they can now do electronically. Nobody has to drive out to the vehicle anymore. So they've spent a lot of money, and you'll see that under the consulting expenditure with regards to project management, systems, Linux support. And then I just want to pick up on the employee wellness. It is the one company that takes employee wellness really seriously. They have a yoga room and they have a meditation room. It's really cool. And if you go there, you will see that they take it serious because people are motivated and happy to go to work. So just broadly why you see a range of expenditure. Khamsa, did I capture that?
Yes, you did, HRD. I think it's about the massive transformative purpose of GMT and the new strategy that is developed for electronic vehicles, but also the new energy vehicles that we're talking about. We're not only focusing on electric vehicles, but because of the fact that the environment is so dynamic, it's ever changing. We need to do research constantly in terms of the greener energy alternatives. So yes, we might not have the expertise on board in terms of officials, and that is why we need to make use of consultants on these matters and working with the institutions to give us better understanding in terms of where we are going.
Thank you very much. Just page 201, there's bad 26 point, so it's 26.2. And if you go to one, bad debt written off, if you can just explain that. Is there any other questions, members? I think then we're fine. Member Blecker, I'm going to ask you, but I need to take a 10-minute break after this before we get to the department. Member Lecker, your question?
No, thank you, Chair. Mine is on matters that have not been reported on. Let me see, I think that is on page 211, 33.1.5, referral for possible recovery claim on financial losses suffered. I want to check, this has not been reported on at the current juncture, but I want to get an understanding as to whether there has been an establishment as to when this started, because it talks to petrol claims that have been submitted. When did this, when was this identified? And why is it that it has not been included in this? And perhaps as a way of resolution, Chair, if we can get feedback as and when this is attended to as it is. Thank you.
Much HOD, over to you.
I'm going to ask Rian to speak to the bad debt issue. And Antoni, can you maybe just give a timeline of the fuel fraud matter, when it started and where we are? Thank you.
Chairperson, on your question, I take it it's the 37,000 you're referring to. So those ones are fleet risk debtors. So basically it's individuals that damage the GMT vehicles. And we've instituted claims through the process that my colleague Antonio has explained. But when we found that those are not recoverable due to many months that it hasn't actually been paid, we assessed it and saw it as non-recoverable, and we went through the appropriate process through the delegations to have it written off, and that's why we're carrying it as a loss.
Basically, the fuel card cases was picked up by GMT around the end of December 2022. And after our initial investigation, we drafted a case that was referred to the Provincial Forensics Units for assistance. And all these cases that we have identified to the value that was mentioned earlier in the annual report have been registered with the different police stations in the areas where the potential clone card fraud has occurred. And some of these investigations are still under investigation. And we are currently guided by Provincial Forensic Unit in terms of the outcome of these cases that's still pending to date. As my colleague mentioned, with the new fuel contract that we awarded towards the end of 2022, we significantly changed our internal control measures. And as Rian mentioned, the specific 13 parameters that we view. that definitely changed the landscape in terms of how we manage this, and we're waiting the outcome of the cases that was reported.
Thank you, Anthony. I just want to close this loop. So Rudwan is here from Provincial Forensic Services. The investigation on the fuel card fraud was a really complex investigation because they had to go and review how many transactions? Thousands.
Yeah, it was,
Thousands of transactions.
yeah, a couple of 100,000 transactions. Yeah.
Hundred thousands of transactions. When forensic services got to a point where they started having enough evidence to say, but we can go to the service provider who is providing the fuel card services and claim against them, they obviously, we had a discussion with legal services, and they said when they're at a certain stage, they'll come back to us. So they came back to me after this reporting period, indicating that I think there's enough evidence now to appoint senior counsel to look at the prospects of recovering some of the losses. So that's what this 3315 is about. It is about, we know there's fraud, that's what the report says, but we have started the process to go after the companies who were supposed to be checking, would have seen there's a problem if they had been doing their work properly, and we are awaiting council guidance on the prospects of taking these are big companies, including big banks, on in this matter. Thank you.
Thank you very much, members. That is the end. Is there any questions on GMT? There's no questions. We're going to take a break. Just for how long? Because there's coffee at the back there, but I need a break before we get into the department. Members, is it fine? Let's take this break, a 15-minute break. You can get some coffee at the back if you want some coffee, but then of course the GMT members is then can go home if they need to too. Okay. The minister, you need to stay, and the HOD need to stay. Thank you. we're going over to the department, and we've done governance. But one of the issues that we had, and then we're going over to the PFMA compliance report. And I want to throw the first question on, you know what my favorite one, the 30 days. Remember, the control is an unlimited bidding. So that's her domain. The 30 days is my domain. So there is an explanation there, but we just explain how that happened, the 30 days. And if that's on page 137, if you can explain. Members, is there any other questions on the PFA? The one thing? Okay, member, you go before I conclude.
Mine's not, it was going to be a question earlier when we got into the discussion about Porsche Cayennes and Macans and so forth. What I'd noticed here on page 138 was a thing called procurement of a judge vehicle under supply chain management. But so I imagine that we've now had that explanation there for 61.696 million. So yeah, I think so that I think was just my comment that I wanted to make on that section.
Thank you very much. I know the what we've discussed earlier, but also a risk for the department is the departure of the HOD, and maybe the minister can tell us what is the plans to avert that risk, and what is the department at risk. That is one of the things because that we've discussed earlier. Member Nkonhlo?
On page 138, and with the department, isn't it, Chairperson?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, on page 138, I think I'm just trying to understand the logic of the limited bid for the same service, different suppliers. Why this needed then to be limited bid? Procurement of a vehicle for a mobile office, procurement of services to convert a vehicle into a mobile office by two different suppliers. Again, same thing, support services for the minibus primary taxi, you know, by SADRA. So and it's under emergency bid. Perhaps also you can just explain and elaborate the circumstances around why these had to be taken as limited bids or as emergency bids. Thanks.
Second one, the emergency one, I don't want to talk about the limited because that's your domain, but the emergency, you know, surely there must be planning, and why was that emergency bid? Members, is there any other questions? Member Lecker?
Thank you, Chair. A quick one is around the underspending on the compensation of employees, page 153, Chair. Where are we?
No, we at page the PMFA compliance report 129 to 138. So thank you. I'll give you opportunity when we're there. Minister HOD?
Mandibulele ngethuba. Zakuyiphela ngesixhosa lesihlalo. Chair, firstly, it is unfortunate that we have to lose the HOD. And of course, when we first heard about the news, the HOD wanted to leave somewhere on Medelek, you know, and we had to ask the HOD to just to stay for the month because of these processes where we have to account as she's the accounting officer. Of course, when one wants to leave an organization, one will have to consult widely. And we believe that she has done that, and we have accepted that. And when such things do actually happen, then unfortunately you'll have to find an acting HOD. So we are actually with .P, with the DG, we are in that process of identifying an acting HOD. And simultaneously also we will be advertising the position of the HOD. And that position will definitely be filled. So whoever would feel fit, who think is fit to be an HOD for mobility, when the process is open, anyone can apply. So those are the kind of processes that we are engaging internally in terms of mobility. It's very unfortunate, but there's nothing that we can do about it. Thank you very much.
Other questions? And then, Member Peters, I'll give you after this opportunity. I'm just asking the department to answer the other questions. You.
Thank you. Rian will just answer the 30-day question, and then I will see how far I can get with a limited bid. He might help me. Thank you.
Chairperson, on the 30 days, so the question was the reasons for the late payments. There are 14 different ones as indicated in the table. Some of them are for recurring suppliers. So 6 of them is for the travel agency that we're using. 1 is for GMT. 5 is for our office printers, and then 1 or 2 others for online services and stationers. So the reasons vary. Each one's actually got a unique reason for it. But internet connectivity problems, the amounts were captured incorrectly, and obviously there was segregation of duty considerations prior to us processing that. Then there was also matters pertaining to instances where the invoices were not correct necessarily, and we did follow-ups, multiple follow-ups. There were also disputes, and there were also items where the incorrect ICN numbers. ICN numbers is used during the procurement process. So basically when the supplier sends us the goods, even though the goods are delivered, then we cannot actually match our purchase order to the item that the supplier produces. And that's got a knock-on effect in the time frame of us processing these invoices. So the total amount that we've got is the 174,000, but the main reasons are contained in what we've just spoken about now.
Thank you, Rian. I will just speak to firstly the emergency procurement that happened. This was in relation to mediation services for Route 6, so Route 6 Mitchells Plain Taxi Association, where the annual general meeting and then the special general meeting was disrupted. There were serious allegations flying, and there was a threat of violence breaking out from within the ranks of the association and obviously in the areas of service. So the department procured dispute resolution services to support the Route 7, I think I can see 7. And that resulted in the matter formally being dealt with as a legal issue and was taken to court, which allowed different processes to follow, which is exactly what we want to happen rather than people shooting each other at a rank. So those 2 bids was to appoint the mediators. There were other duplicates, like you can see Travel with Flair happened twice. I think what happened there is we did a limited bid because the tender that we were busy with was delayed. And then we did a limited bid to say, well, in 30 days, it will be fine. And then it wasn't fine. And then we had to do it again. There are smaller matters. I must say this, have you got anything on this road safety billboards advertisement? This is a weird one. The big one is obviously the AFSOL contract that was put out for the Go George services. The proposal was that with the current contracts coming to an end in 3 years' time, to go out on a tender now to change the whole IT system, because this is the underlying IT system, would become too much of a risk for the service itself. And there are also regulatory issues arising from national where they want us to use account-based services rather than card-based services. And with that uncertainty, we didn't want to put out the tender because we didn't know what to put the tender out. So we just kept, I spoke about the dependencies at some point, I don't know, this morning or this afternoon, but this is one of them. We've spoken about the judge's vehicle. The mobile offices, what happens there is the only people who do these, it's normally for social development. Ne? The only company who actually can change these vans are the people who built the vans. So then we kind of stuck in a single supplier. And I just want to give you some detail on the communications. This was for road safety. We did actually put out requests, and then we got no feedback. And then we put out another request, and then the company that came back to us wasn't registered. And this would have been, if I can guess, just before Christmas. Yeah, 28th of November. So for our road safety campaign, we felt that we should put this thing in place, but it wasn't this. I mean, it was an emergency from the beginning. It was a double quotation system that ended up not giving us an outcome, either that the people were not registered on the system or they were not compliant. We've spoken about that. Don't think we can turn about that. Some of this accommodation stuff happens when the minister goes somewhere and we normally send the electric vehicle with or some thing, or this actually might have been when we took the vehicles to Mossel Bay. And the staff who then drives there gets told the night before, you got to go with the minister to Mossel Bay, and then they haven't arranged for the hotel things properly, so they just pay and claim it back. We've spoken about that. And then the pet learners, that was also, there were 2 requests for quotations. These are the students that go and do road safety debates. And we did 2 quotations, and they were not successful, and then the kids had to go for this thing, and we I signed off on the limited bid. It's a long list. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to have a follow-up. The 30 days, these delays were during the departmental refresh. So it's no fault of the department. You're saying it's these 30 days of late payments, because if I read it, the abnormal load payments were mistakenly deposited into the into an incorrect bank account. Is that is that the wrong information received, or did the department make a error in putting the money into incorrect bank accounts because of the department's refresh?
Yeah, second option. It's the second option. So basically it was deposited into the wrong bank account, and basically that's why it arose as a late payment.
Kondla?
No, Chair, I think on the limited bids, I would think we would need the department to really improve, because these other things are just a planning issue from where I'm sitting. When I listen to the HOD, I don't think they really required emergency bidding or limited bidding. I think we'll just have to follow this up as part of our resolutions, that there must be something that is extraordinary, because you can't use limited or emergency bidding on something that you needed to have known. I mean, you talk about dialogues that young people go to. I'm assuming this is a program of the department that they know. Because remember, an open tender process allows people to participate. You can't use limited bidding because you deprive other people an opportunity to participate. So I just think, without belaboring the point, that this is a matter we'll have to scrutinize, because this thing of limited bidding really must be used for when there is some emergency that requires such.
Thank you, Member Petrus.
Thank you, Chairperson. On that, Chairperson, can we have a list of all the contracts and tenders of more than 3 years and the rand value of that contracts and tenders, please?
No, Chair, thank you very much. I just wanted to correct that I have not used any vehicles to Mosul Bay. It was not me.
Okay. So, members, that is PMMA compliance report. We're going over to the financials questions, members. Member Van Wyk, then Member Lekker, and then Member Kondlo, and then I'll take the next one after that. Member Van Wyk.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I notice on page 144, it basically deals with the I suppose the predetermined objectives and so forth. What we have there on number of vehicles weighed. Now that looks like 630,000 vehicles or something that went through weigh bridges, and you get to 608,000. Now, unless one has got a very good idea of how many vehicles are going to come through on setting a target like that for yourself, you almost it's skipping a lot for your hut in the type of objectives that one creates. So that's just a comment that I have in the type of environment that one has, where one's got to get predetermined objectives. So, I think one is, what I'm saying is, there is a limit to what one can do. And, one perhaps just needs to think quite carefully about when one sets an objective like that, is it realistic that you're going to, be out by what, 22,000? It's a lot of vehicles that one's got. It just seems to me, does it really add that value to the fact that you're doing something and then you are going to fall short on it? And then notice on page 154, we talk about departmental revenue, which is the 2.135 billion that we have there, which is obviously the motor vehicle licenses. And so effectively what I'm seeing what you're doing here is that you are still receiving an appropriation to come through to be able to fund your operations, and then this revenue gets passed on, obviously, back into revenue fund. But I imagine against revenue fund, it's got to balance out against some other expenditure then, as such. And I suppose the question then is, how have we got a fairly accurate handle on what that revenue is going to be? Because, just looking from a municipality point of view, I think the questions, there always seem to be questions that there are vehicles who are not re-registering. And for whatever reasons, and nobody probably catches up with them. But, I don't know from a data management point of view. To me, I think it's important that one gets some form of handle on how many vehicles we actually have in the province, because that was also an economic indicator in many ways as to where we're going with what you're doing. So really, it's just a comment more than anything else. It's not, I don't expect a magic answer out of it. But just, I suppose what we should be thinking more and more is about data, and how do we get that data, and how do we analyze it, and how do we understand what that revenue is that can flow from it, and is that revenue that we're getting, is it something that one can accurately go and budget expenditure against? Because if there's 10% out, you're going to be short somewhere.
Thank you very much, Member Lekker.
Thank you, Chair. On page 144, Chair, under Program 2 on transport operations, I'm looking at the number of targets that have been achieved, which is 85%, compared to the budget that has been spent, which is 99% of the budget. So almost all of it has been spent. And I want to understand, Chair, what then becomes a value for money kind of arrangement if we would spend almost the entire budget, and yet we've got 15% of the targets that has not been achieved in that regard. And then, Chair, page 153, which talks to the underspending, which is as a result of the compensation of employees due to delayed recruitment. I think this has been happening throughout the departments, and this one is no exception. Can we get clarity exactly what happened? Thank you.
Thank you. Member Nkonto?
Chair, my one, I think on page 153, I think on the question of the underspending on the appointment of a service provider to develop an in-year performance dashboard. My question is twofold, Chair. I'm trying to understand, one, why this happened, but also in light of the conversation we're having about Program 1, whilst I acknowledge when one looks at the classification, you know, that the biggest amount of the budget of this program went to compensation of employees. But I'm interested to understand, even on the goods and services, what exactly the administration program was doing in view of the fact that 6 months, which is half of this financial year, you know, mainly what was operating was that joint, which was a joint committee or administration of the one side. So for me, you know, the expenditure does not explain, you know, this. And this is one of the things that we're always having problems also, where you find underspending, but full spending of budget, you know, then you're trying to make an understanding of the two. So I'm saying my question there is twofold. One is, why was the delay in the appointment of this service provider for a performance dashboard, you know, but also take into account that we were dealing with the fact that this very program of administration, where this program, I'm assuming, where this service provider would have been appointed, you know, would have fallen under Program 1, you know, that 6 months of the financial year where the other period was operated somewhere else. What was this money? What was administration Program 1? What was it doing? You know, so I'm sincerely trying to understand that as my first question. My second question, Chair, is exactly the question I asked earlier on about contingent liabilities, which emanates from the previous Department of Public Works. I see that you've got a debt from a previous. That's why I was saying perhaps you are not that new, you know, because if you are new, why are you prepaying debts of the old? So, but please just give us an indication of what's happening here and where is the situation of this case. Thanks.
Thank you very much. My question is also there by Member Lekkers. See at Program 2 on Transport and Operations on page 144. I'm on Program 3, Transport Regulations, and that is 80% of the targets achieved, but 99.77 of the budget spent. And then why could you not meet your targets of the number of schools involved in road safety education? That's my first one. And the second one I have was the goods and services Goods and services, this is 154, but then it's explained on 169. If again, there's consultants, and then travel and subsistence is quite consumables. Just the big amounts. If you can just give me the big amounts on those ones. Not giving them all, but maybe just the big ones as I pointed out. Thank you very much.
I will start with the contingent liability. It might sound like the hard one, but it's actually the easiest one. So there was a child who fell into a manhole, and the respondent was cited as both the Department of Mobility and the Department of Infrastructure. We approached legal service to ask if we can be withdrawn from that case because we are not responsible for infrastructure. But the feedback that we got from the criminal justice system is that we will have to be recused when the court sitting happens. So we don't think we are, no, we know we are not liable for that 20 million. But we were not able to have ourselves withdrawn as a respondent before the actual court appearance. So in terms of the administration program, there are the ministry falls there under, my office falls under it, and then there is management support, which is the support in terms of operations. So all the travel issues are dealt with there, all the safety issues, all the facility issues, the record keeping, record management is in there. And then there is strategic support, which is the strategic planning people, does the annual report, does the IPP, does the strat plan. And we have a policy and research unit responsible for the PLTF and oversight and approval of the ITPs of municipalities. So that is the broad, oh, and then there's communication and IT and financial management and internal control and supply chain management account. So that's the basket of services that is in administration. And during the management arrangement, the only structures that was out of that was the minister's office and the HOD's office. So all of those services, all of those communications, supply chain, internal, all of those happened in the management arrangement that was the responsibility of the CFO of DOI. I'm talking myself out of it. Oh, so we were in underspending. The underspending on compensation of employee is largely, obviously there's some recruitment that takes a bit longer, but largely due to the Department of Public Service Administration circular that froze post and required approval through the Premier's office. So to get all of those, every post needed a separate motivation. It all needed to be signed off to say that there's enough money for it. You know, some people want other posts, then they change their mind. So it just took some time to get that whole submission into the Premier's office, and then it takes some time for it now to get approved through all the structures there. So where you would normally have the HOD signing off saying, yeah, advertise the post, it now has a whole bureaucratic process to get approved. So that wasted months. It wasted months of this year, and that led to COE issues. My minister always says he just wants to be 100% honest. I want to be 100% honest. The delay of appointing people to do the monitoring doesn't arrive from my space. So it might have been something that was put in the budget before, but it was not something that we used. And I think we probably should have just shifted the money, but we didn't. And then, as you can see, there were some audit fees that we provided for. There was a delay in that. If you look at the other under expenditure in transport operations, I think it was a CETA delay there, Deirdre. Yeah, CETA. It was a CETA delay, yeah. On the machinery and equipment, a small compensation of employees, and a very small goods and services, and then in traffic it is compensation of employees. So it was the CETA matter, audit matter, and compensation of employees. I'm sorry that I don't have information on that other thing. That is just it. Deirdre, are you happy to answer the GABS performance information? And then, Billy, will you pick up on the? Will you also pick up on the weighbridge? Thank you, Deirdre.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, this is a target set for the Golden Arrow bus service that's paid through the Public Transport Operating Grant. These targets are set prior to when we get an indication of what PTOG amounts we're going to get and before the indices are set. So there's like a month lag. So in terms of this, we try to create efficiencies. So there's about 40 routes that was reduced by 40 routes, but it's actually routes that's amalgamated. So you can have a direct route and you can have a feeder service. Now we bring that together and it's now one route. It's not seen as two separate, by way of an example. In terms of we have not met the target, but we can spend our budget. For this case, monitoring of the Golden Arrow bus service, we don't pay monitoring services per kilometer. We pay it on a monthly basis because they have to monitor the service. So that's why you'll spend your full allocation on it. Chair, I hope that answers that question.
Just for the committee's information, there are two indicators for Golden Arrow. One is the number of routes that you can see we underperform. Two is the number of kilometers, and there we overperform. So it might look like a negative thing, but it's not a negative thing. It is hard for us to estimate how many routes we will have in the beginning of the year, and we actually provide more services in that year. Billy, will you speak to the schools and the weighbridges?
Thank you, actually, Chair. Yeah, in terms of first and foremost, both those are national indicators. We must be careful that we don't set targets. Those targets, proportionally in terms of the number of weighbridges in the province, we get allocated a target that's a national target. So the reason for the problem we are facing is because it's not really a law enforcement. We are reporting on the target, but law enforcement will ensure that the vehicles go to the weighbridge. But the physical weighing of the vehicles is not within our ambit. So if there's a transgression, then there are different indicators in terms of how we deal with it. And subsequently, with the vehicles weighed, we had all those storms. So for a period of time, in terms of weather conditions, some of those weighbridges were closed, as well as if there's any maintenance on any of those weighbridges, it gets closed, and it has an impact on us, which then reflected on us not achieving the targets on the weighbridges. With regards to the schools involved, we only realized afterwards, that's also a national indicator, that some of the schools required more than one type of intervention. So we would have done a scholar patrol at a school, and then with a scholar patrol, for instance, the establishment of a scholar patrol would require 3 or 4 or 5 different visits to a specific school, or there's a road safety talk at a school. So we initially overachieved on the target, but then in terms of our own processes, we indicated, but actually in terms of how it is stated there, that you can only count that school once. So despite the fact that we might have been 6 or 7 or 8 times at a specific school, we're only allowed to count it once. So we have now rectified that, so that unfortunately,
if you go to the same school or you have different interventions at that school, in terms of the indicators, we will only be able to count a specific school once. And that's the reason why it looked like that we underachieved.
Giovanni, thanks, Deirdre. Just the last question on the motor vehicle license fees. We had in the census a 28% increase in the provincial population, and we had a 28% increase in the provincial vehicle population. So this is a growing budget, and we, well, for the last 2 years that I know of, have over-collected every year on this. So my sense is that we are conservative in our estimates. But you are right, it is a risk. It is a large amount of money that comes into the province. Thank you.
Item 4, goods and services, note number 4. But just a question. I mean, I've now heard about there's a follow-up on the schools involved in road safety education program. Surely that cannot be right. If there's a need and you go back, how can you only, if you go 8 times, how it can only account to 1 because there's a need? You're not going back because you want to go back. You need, because I don't know how, because then you actually overachieved there, but it's not indicated and it looks bad because you spent almost the entire budget, but you've only reached 80% of your target. So I don't know how you're going to clarify that, because you only go back if there's a need for you to go back. You don't go back because you want to go back. Now, if you want to make targets, you're not going to fulfill that promise there. There's a need there, but I'm going to go there to make sure that I get my target. So that's a difficult one. I don't know how you're going to get around that. So I understand what you're saying, but that is just the dilemma. HD, if you just go on the note 4, thank you. Just say the big items there, 169 on goods and services. Again, you've got consultants there, massive amount. Consumables, travel, and subsistence. I don't want you to go through computer services, that I understand, but some of the others maybe just to point that out.
So I'm just broadly speak and then ask Rian to provide more detail. The big number on goods and services is the consultant budget. And my understanding is that is the services that we get for the Provincial Sustainable Transport Program and for the hub, net for the hub money. Administrative fees is the other huge big amount. That is because we pay municipalities obviously to collect the motor vehicle license fees. So that 426 is what we pay to local government for doing as an agent of government. Fleet service is a large amount that we spend. That is our payment to GMT. We are also their boss and their client. Rian, was there anything else you wanted to highlight on that? Those are the big amounts. Thank you.
The 89 million, the majority of that is the 88 to external service providers. That's for the hosting Azure. So that's the other big amount.
Member Nkondlo, you got a follow-up? You're fine. Member, I'm just going to go to 1 or 2 other ones. If you look at page 168, there's compensative and circumstantial. If you go to compensation of employers, if you can just explain that. Compensation and circumstantial payments is mainly in respect of nights of the days allowance. I'll get to the next point if you explain that to me, but sometimes I don't know. Maybe sometimes when you certain jobs that you have, you get a danger pay. I mean, for the, but now I see. I don't know. Just explain that to me. But
Yes.
just wait quickly. I don't know. Yes, there's other questions. No, I think they tired. You've made them tired. Okay, HOD.
Yeah, yes, it is. Our traffic law enforcement can do 30% overtime. So we pay, this is an overtime payment for traffic law enforcement when they drive the escorts to the renewable energy farms, then they get overtime payment if they work beyond their shifts. Yeah, so that it's a lot. We spend a lot of money on overtime, but it is capped. I think national caps it 30% or something.
Members, other questions? I think they're done. I think they. The HOD says he had a coffee break. Now he needs a tea break. Are we going to park it there? Let me just see. Oh yeah, remember Kondla did mention that one. The pillar cases on to 176.6.2 contingent assets. The pillar cases. If you can just explain that, and then maybe I think I'll also just park it there. Thank you.
Sorry, Chair. I'm defaulting to my master. So pillar is the temporary leave, and there would have been cases that had not been finalized, which we might have had to pay for those days taken off that at that point hadn't been concluded. So it is temporary incapacity leave cases that had not been finalized. And I see also there was also some issues around whether there were housing schemes or FLISP responsibilities. Yes, but the contingents were for pillar.
Okay, I think that's it. Everybody is tired. I think you're tired because you're here from this morning. Thank you very much. I think that is the end. I'm going to give the minister and the HOD just concluding remarks, and then Member Van Wyk sitting in front. He's got the lucky draw to do the thank yous. Thank you.
No, Chair, on behalf of the department and the entity, we just would like to appreciate the spirit in how the engagements were conducted. And coming in here, I knew that in terms of the achievement of targets vis-a-vis, the budget was going to be one of the questions Member Nkondlo was going to ask, because it's the same question that we're battling with last year, and we asked the AG. Every session that we had with the AG would ask the same question. So that shows that Member Nkondlo is not happy with the explanation that she got from the AG. And I thought that question was exhausted and it is dead, but seemingly still has been resurrected. No, thank you very much. But Chair, I would like to thank the HOD for her role. You know, since she took the responsibility of being the accounting officer of mobility, and also GMT, and also to the colleagues that served under her. And for the results, you know, GMT, there's not a lot of issues there, but I know in terms of mobility, whatever has been said and shared by the colleagues and the concerns raised, I believe that we take note, and surely we are listening. And probably next term or next time we are here, I know it's not going to be, it's probably going to be a shorter session, because we are going to fix all the things that we need to fix. And also to your leadership as well, Chair. Thank you very much. That's all from myself. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to thank Rian for his work in GMT and for Bianca to support him. Khadisa, thank you. These are your statements. You put them together. And yes, it is the department's success, and I want to thank everybody for contributing to that. Thank you very much.
Well, Vic, remember you had a nice chat with the HOD, so remember she's leaving, so will you include that in your thank yous?
Yes, certainly. Thanks, Chair. I think, certainly from a committee point of view, I think we would like to thank the department and the work that they've done during the year. One can certainly see some excellent results that I think that have come out from a new department, and I think we do acknowledge, and we have to recognize the complication and the difficulty that you have in setting up a new department, even though it is being spawned off from another department, and these type of teething problems that need to be dealt with, and certainly we're talking about big numbers that come across, and not only is it this recreating yourself or refreshing, if that's the word that we use, but I think it's also a department that is potentially looking at a different type of territory, this whole aspect of what else is mobility and moving into that space, which is a bit of an unknown type of territory that one is moving in, which adds to that level of complication. So thank you very much for the work you've done and for to put together your first, in effect, annual report and set of results. So thank you very much. I think, it is obviously terribly sad now to lose an HOD after this year in moving on, but thank you very much for guiding us through this period of time, and want to wish you all the best in your next moves in your career. So thank you very much from our committee.
Thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned. We'll stay behind for the resolutions. Thank you very much, Minister, HOD and Department.
Minister, is this your phone?
Thank you very much, members. We, like I usually do it, I'm going to ask Mr. Dustin Davids to read the resolutions. If you want to add, you can add to that. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Just some conceptual resolutions, Chair. Some briefings, some documents, some request for information, Chair. The first one, Chair, is what is the department succession plan with regards to the resignation of the HOD and the associated risks that's associated with that plan, Chairperson. Then, Chairperson, from Mbonkondlo, it was there's a resolution regarding the risk of GMT versus the department, and that they should not copy and paste into each other's books, but it should be separate. So that's just a resolution, Chair, that we will put in there, Chairperson. Chair, from yourself as well regarding the risks of both the department and the entity, that they just come and brief us, Chair. Otherwise, we would have spent whole night here just listening to what's the explanation on the risk. So in next year, there will be a packed session just on briefing on the risks and the management thereof, Chairperson. Chair, then basically concern from Member Mkondlo, just that the department can brief us on the managing of the transition from the old department to the new department. What was the successes and the challenges of that transition? And then we have then we do have the matters that has not been reported. When was this identified, not included? The department said that they can give us a document or a report on that, Chair. And then, Chairperson, the limited bidding and emergency bidding, Member Konlo indicated that we should take a resolution basically to minimize that emergency and limited bidding, Chair, so that will go into the scope report. And Member Petrus asked for all contracts and tenders over the 3-year period, Chairperson, in the form of documentation. Chairperson, that is basically it, Chairperson, and then the rest, they were all just questions which the department answered, Chairperson. Yeah.
Members, any additions? Is that fine? Member Lekker?
Richard, it's on page 211 GMT on the forensic investigation with regards to the petrol cards. Can we get an update on that one? Thank you.
It's shocking, that's over 100,000 cases. So that's a major, major concern. And now they say they've got 13 points in place, but it's still not, so I think we should get a briefing on that, because that's a major, major risk. You don't pick it up and you've got over 100,000 cases. I don't know how that works, but I think we must get a briefing on that. The steps to prevent,
Mitigation.
what's a mitigation? Cloning of petrol cards. Cloning.
Yes.
No. I'll give you one of the indicators is if you throw if you have a petrol card, if you throw diesel in or something. Yeah. I mean, that's a nonsense one. But okay, member Vik.
Look, I think to get some form of briefing there is also important, because it needs to be passed on to local municipalities as well, because this, if it's happening here, it's probably happening in other areas as well. So there's probably important lessons that could be shared there.
Chairperson,
Yes,
is it fine with you, Chair, and with the committee, if we can get an update, a joint update from the Provincial Forensic Services, including GMT together,
yes,
so that they can
Correct.
together, Chairperson,
Correct.
give us an overall.
Yes.
And also, what was the recommendations that the Provincial Forensic Services gave GMT, because they normally give
Yes.
recommendations for each case, and what was the follow up on those recommendations?
I think they also said they have enough proof now for the service provider to charge the service provider. Because so that's a whole session
on its
that we can do. Members, is that it? Thank you very much and enjoy your evening. There's no coffee, there's no refreshments. You ate it all up in the break. Thank you very much.